business.
Right.
So
Helga,
the
we're
stage is
welcoming
yours.
you.
Yeah, so she's going to talk about mental health.
Here's the clicker. You'll see the timer. Let's see. Can we see the timer? Yeah. And if you want questions, then you have to finish a little earlier. Okay.
Hi, great to be here in Riga. My name is Helga and I come from Reykjavik, Iceland. I am the founding partner of Crowberry Capital. We are a $40 million US dollar investment fund that invests in seed and early stage. And I was a bit shocked when I was asked to talk about VCs and mental health, because I thought maybe I'll have to talk about how VCs drive every founder crazy. But I'm really hoping that as a VC, and I think most investors think this way, that instead of driving founders crazy, we can help them along their difficult journey to share their problems. I just want to tell you a little bit about myself and what we do at Crowberry. At Crowberry, we have the mantra, all hands on tech. That means that as investors, we really want to be hands-on, and it's important, as I will explain later, to make a distinction. We're hands-on, not hands-in. And also, when we invest in companies, we're really investing in the people that build them. And one of the things that we really think about is we want to find people that are good for companies, because good people build good companies. And we also want to build companies that are good for people. And I think these two things go hand in hand. So the founder's mental health is very, very important to us. Now, anything I say today is sort of anecdotal. I am not a mental health professional. I am an investment professional, so I'm really talking from the investor's perspective. I've been on a lot of boards. I think I've worked professionally as a VC for the last 10 years. I've been on over 20 startup boards. I've been on boards of listed companies. I've been on the boards of a bank, and I've been on the boards of family companies. So I've seen all sorts of different board dynamics, and as I will come to in this talk, I think it's very, very important for founders' mental health, how they use the board to their advantage. I personally have a passion for team building, and again, I think it's very important if you're going to make the founder's journey to have a good team around you, and that includes the founding team, the employees and the startup team that you hire, as well as the investment team. What type of investors do you work with? And I'm also on a personal mission to build and to connect tech ecosystems. So I'm really, really happy to be invited here to Riga, because I think we can build bridges between, and there are a lot of bridges between the Nordics and the Baltics. And I started Crowberry with two engineers, Hekla and Jenny. We had worked together at another fund, so I just wanted to introduce them as well. And we are, although we may not look like a diverse team, we're a very diverse team because we have complementary skills. But also, as a founding team of a fund, we really support each other. So I appreciate, and we have our challenges as well. And then we have an investment board, which is Gumme, who sold a startup to Apple and sold a startup to Google, and he spent about 20 years in Silicon Valley. We have Austis, who is an IP, a Stanford-trained IP lawyer, and we have Ayit, who is an AI nerd and has been working in startups for a long time. So the six of us make Crowberry Capital, and we have a lot of international experience. But I came here to talk about the founder's journey. And as you know, the founder's journey can be quite lonely. And it is hard. And you only really hear about the success stories. When you read the press and things like that, you hear about the success stories. And when you're at, between the mountains and you're trying to scale the difficult mountain, nobody wants to interview you. They just want, when Bolt has made it to the top of the mountain, that's when they get on stage. That's when they get all the glory. And what you read in the press is you think it's a very easy journey. But we all know that it's not. It is a challenging journey. And as a VC, we see the goods, the bads, and the uglies. And we hope that we can support you through that journey so you don't find yourself alone at the top of the mountain. You have people around you. And if you haven't read The Hard Thing About Hard Things, and you're a founder, I really recommend, this is one of my favorite books. I give it to all the teams that I work with. This is by Ben Horowitz of Andreessen Horowitz fame, and it's about his journey as a founder. And yes, he had 2 successful startups, but in this book, you also see that he had great people around him, and there were many, many challenges, and the sometimes the line between life and death of a company is quite thin, and you have to know how to navigate that as a founder. So when we invest in startups, we really look for a special type of founders. You know, you have the very, very fragile founders who kind of, you know, there may be founders that want to found a company because it's fun to be in the startup scene, and then at the first hurdle, they give up. And then you also have the tungsten founders. Tungsten is the hardest metal that is. Nothing moves them, nothing budges. And I think both sides of the spectrum can be very, very difficult. The fragile founder just leaves at the first hurdle, and the tungsten founder doesn't budge. He doesn't share his problems. He just stands there like a very, very big block of steel, and nothing touches him. And having worked with a number of founders who seem very, very, very strong on the outside, and they're very stubborn, and they're on a mission, and they're not going to move, and even if they have to pivot or change a little bit, they don't, because the line between stubbornness and tenacity is a fine line, and they choose stubbornness. So the founders that we want to invest in are the resilient founders. These are founders that can, you know, keep power through, get through challenges, but you know, can also bend and sway with the wind. And these are the people that build successful companies. And if you think about, there are sort of two things, there are a number of things that identify resilience, but I think there are two things that stand out. First of all, you have to be optimistic. To be resilient, you really have to believe. You have to have self-confidence and be optimistic. You also have to do that if you want to be an investor. And the second thing is, you have to have a good network around you. And you just see resilient people in life have good friends and family. And I think when you're thinking as a founder, then you really have to think, who is your founder family? And yes, you have your personal network of friends and family, but they may be part of the 3 Fs. They may have invested in your company. So you don't necessarily, you share your personal challenges with them, but you don't necessarily share your work challenges with them, because they may not understand your industry or understand the place you're at, and they may just say, go get a job with the government, it pays well. So the people, you know, who do you share with? And I put a little Icelandic football founder here, because we like to say who, but who do you share your journey with? You share it with your co-founders, and it's great if you have co-founders. At Crowberry, there were 3 of us that founded the fund, and I can't tell you what a difference that makes. But sometimes you're a sole founder, and then you don't have those co-founders to share your journey with. You also have your team, the people you hire, and they will help you solve all sorts of work challenges, like how to solve a certain piece of code, or how to sell your product. You can have all sorts of advisors. I think startups attract advisors, and you have good advisors who will help you with specific verticals, but they don't really have skin in the game. And then you have your investors. The investors are people that put money, they believe in you, they put money to back you, and they should have your back. And a good investor always will. And maybe to sort of bear out this theory of how sharing your company with investors is a good thing. I don't know if you know Noam Wasserman. He wrote a peer-reviewed paper called The Founder's Dilemma. And and it's also published in Harvard Business Review about 10 years ago. But this is sort of a classic founder's theory that a founder who gives up more equity to attract investors builds a more valuable company with more than somebody who doesn't part with them. And it's like an obvious thing, that you have a smaller piece of a bigger pie. And really, if you have this dilemma, you choose whether you're a king of your company, you have complete control, but you haven't given away any shares, but you are in control, and some entrepreneurs like that. You also have the rich people, the ones that include investors, give away equity to their staff. They usually are more successful, and the company reaches full potential. And then, of course, you have 2 exceptions. You have the failures, even if you give away equity, the product wasn't good enough, you didn't get the right investors. Or you have people, exceptional people, that somehow build a very valuable company, but manage to have complete control of the company. And maybe sort of Steve Jobs, when he came back to Apple the second time, he was definitely a rich king. He had control of Apple, and he made a lot of money. But normally it's the To become rich, you share your company. But I think it's not just the equity you're sharing, and this doesn't come out in this founder's dilemma theory, but I think it's also you're sharing your challenges. Because as they say, as cliched as it may be, a problem shared is a problem halved. And I think, sharing your challenges early on, depending on what the challenge is, you choose what part of your network you share that challenge with. And the best way maybe to share your challenges, sort of the big picture vision challenges, is with your board. Now, I know that a lot of sort of first-time founders I've worked with are like, oh shit, I have to have a board. Now this is like bureaucracy, and I'll have to do like board packs, and it becomes very painful. And they sort of do this as a kind of something that they have to do to have money. But the smart founders, they think, well, yes, I'm going to have a board. This is basically free labor for me. These are people who share my vision. They put money into my company. Normally, you would have some investors on your board and then some outside advisors. And independent board members. So I think sharing things with your board and sharing challenges with your board is very, very important, because then you don't have to internalize and you don't feel that you're responsible for every single challenge. And I think you do, and the best way to do this, and this is what I find that the best founders do, they share the challenges early on. They will say, I'm doing this big contract, we have this opportunity to, get this huge customer, and a big customer also means that there will be big challenges, and you very early on go through all the challenges that that customer or whatever it is in the life of the company will bring, and you identify all the risks with your board, and first of all, the board then is aware of the risk, so they are taking that decision with you. And B, a good board member comes up with constructive criticism or constructive input, so they actually may have solutions very early on how to manage that risk. So I think, the more you share with your board, and I'm not talking about minute operational details, it's more about the challenges and the opportunities. I think the better the board works for you. And then that you have aligned interests. You're in this together. But it's also very important to choose board members that are hands-on and not hands-in. And as I said earlier, somebody who's hands-on, they help you, they provide constructive criticism, they come with constructive input, they help you build your network, they introduce you to people, they've always got your back, you can come to them. Somebody who's hands-in is a board member who thinks, oh yes, I'm not a founder anymore, but I really want to be operational. And they start solving your problems. And they may not be, and start, fixing that code or selling for you. And they probably, and if they are the best people to do that, then you should just hire them. But if not, and it's very, very difficult if a board member all of a sudden wants to become operational, because it's difficult for you as a founding CEO to tell them what to do. So I think hands-on, not hands-in is a good rule. The other way your VC can work with you is just as an advisor. And I have a long laundry list here of things that you can share with your VC. And so when you do your moonshot, and whether you want to stay on the moon or go back to Earth, the VC can help you along the way. And maybe the most important thing is, like, the VC should be a sounding board. And we try to be Socratic in our approach. We try to ask the right questions and to help the founder think problems through. And I really think that's a very important role. And one of the best things a good VC can do is to listen. And because we're an opinionated bunch, that's often very hard, but I think a disciplined VC should listen. Also, sharing our network is very, very important. We know a lot of people, we know corporates, we know other VCs, so sharing our network, and we also know other founders that have maybe been through a similar problem, so sharing our network is something very important. And obviously we see a lot of business models, we see a lot of business development in different places, we get a good market overview, so these are all things that we can help you with. And listen, but one of the things that I get a lot of is sort of team challenges. What do you do? How do you let people go? How do you hire somebody above somebody else's head? How do you tell your co-founder that they shouldn't be CTO anymore? So these are things that maybe is difficult to discuss with your operational team or even your co-founders. You can discuss this with your VC because like you, they want your company to succeed. Fundraising, no-brainer, VC can help a lot there. Also failure. As a founder, I mean, nobody likes failure. Failure is not fun, but we've learned to accept it, and it's important that we do. And I think, as a founder, I hope you have no failures or just one. As VCs, we're investing in a lot of companies, so we see our number of failures. But I think we can also help you. If you really think you have to decide, I'm going to stop on this journey, the VC can help you do it in a practical way. Do you want to go for an acqui-hire? Do you close the company? Nobody wants like a bankrupt bloodbath. So I think we can really, really help you do a responsible failure. The one thing I would kind of, and this is up to every individual, but I think sort of having big personal issues and discussing them with your investors can be difficult. I have met founders who've told me that they're divorcing or having babies or getting a sex change operation and all those things, and that's good that your board knows that you're going through some personal stuff, but going into minute details about your personal issues, that's not to share with your VC, that's to share with your friends and family, and I think they will understand that. But one of the things that you talk, if you have a good relationship with your investor and you have talk about a lot of the business issues, one of the things that you also have to be aware of is just good corporate governance, because you don't want to have a shadow board with just your one investor. So I think making sure that at the next board meeting or the board meeting before you are discussing something with investor, you really sort of tell them that Mr. Investor and Miss Founder, we met and we discussed this and that. So just like letting your board know that you're having these discussions, I think is very important, because otherwise you can, all of a sudden, the board doesn't know what journey you're on. So again, it's a very important corporate governance issue. And so I think it's very important when you ask your VC for money, ask him for money, but also ask him what he can do for you. Ask yourself, how can he help me stay sane on this crazy journey? Because it's all about value creation. You're creating value together, and there are so many things that the VC can do for you, but most importantly, he or she should be able to listen. Happy to take one or two questions if we have time.
Awesome. Let's do some applause. Thank you, Helen. So we have a microphone here in front. So anybody would like to ask a question to Helen? Come on, guys. I know this is the first keynote. I know. But we need some brave souls in this room.
Can I ask a question then?
Yes.
How many founders are in the room? Would the founders please stand up?
The founders, please stand up.
Oh, wow, okay. And nice to see lots of female founders as well. So it's clearly there's a lot of equality in Latvia.
So I have a question. How many of you have VC investment? Okay, one. That's it?
And has the VC helped you?
Yeah, the best investor has.
Okay.
And you have few investors?
So I have about 12 investors, 1 VC.
Okay, 12 investors, 1 VC, and VC is doing good. Yeah? Good. All right, well, thank you very much then.